Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the GioMoShow, your home for all Golden Grizzlies basketball. My name is Giovanni Moceri. I am your host, and we got 1 week left of the regular season of the Horizon League before we get into the tournament. So be sure to rate, review, and subscribe so that you get the finale of the regular season as well as our tournament coverage. The plan is to go to Indy, waiting on the final confirmations to get there, but be sure one way or another I'm going to be covering the tournament whether Oakland is in it or not. So we're going to be doing a little bonus Horizon League content as well for the tournament. So we got a ton coming down the pipeline for March Madness. So be sure to follow along on Spotify as well as on YouTube as well as on Instagram at the GioMo Show. And you can follow me on Twitter as well all the way through at GioMoShow, WXOU. And for this weekend of home games, we hosted the Wisconsin teams Friday against Green Bay and Sunday against Milwaukee, splitting the weekend and putting Oakland in a very strange position when it comes to the standings that we'll break down in just a little bit. But overall, it was, you get a loss on Friday where it was, made it a 4-game losing streak. And man, that post-game press conference felt like a funeral talking to everybody. And it's just, they could be better. They could have won that game. They could have won most of the games that they've lost during that losing streak. Maybe against Cleveland State, not included just because the threes were just unstoppable. But you felt like a lot of those games were on Oakland's fault. They could have done better. They were the ones who made mistakes. Execution on their part wasn't as good. So that's what made it extra frustrating because Oakland could be so much better. And then you finally feel that again. With a win against Milwaukee on Sunday, things just feel normal again. You finally see the Oakland that's been missing throughout that 4-game losing streak. And even in the 2 games they've won without Isaac Garrett, I would say when they lost Isaac, that's when things really started to take a dip and you found that, the low spot in the season just coming at the wrong time in the month of February. But finally against Milwaukee, we were able to find that Oakland groove back. And that puts us now in a better position, not the best, not perfect, but in a better position going into these last 2 regular season games, potentially for seeding in the Horizon League tournament. So it feels good. We'll see what happens for the next 2 games, but for now we can breathe easy. So we'll jump to the Green Bay game. I like to go in chronological order here, even though just today, as of this recording, we're coming off the Milwaukee game. It's fresh in my mind, but we'll get to that in just a little bit because that game is important to have the stage set of this Green Bay game to be able to talk about the Milwaukee one. Because you guys want to talk about the wins more than the losses, but we got to give the loss its due coverage, especially because of the stakes that this game had. Oakland and Green Bay were within half a game of each other. This was Oakland's last time in second place in the league, and we were at 10-6, and Green Bay was at 10-7. And you got Robert Morris, you got Purdue Fort Wayne, you got Detroit in that mix too. So it's very tight and very, very clogged at that number 2 through about 5 spot in the standings of the league. Because Wright State just clinched at least part of the regular season title. It is probably likely that they will take the outright title within the rest of this week. So the stakes of this game were already pretty huge. And Oakland already had a win at at Green Bay. They won both games in that Wisconsin trip, which is very rare to do in the Horizon League. That's usually a very tough trip. But Oakland was able to sweep those 2 away games. And then Green Bay comes to town without Doug Gottlieb because he got suspended for comments that he made about the Horizon League refereeing in their loss against Milwaukee prior to that game. He got suspended for that Friday game against Oakland. So we were up against assistant coach Kerry Rupp, who has a ton of head coaching experience, associate head coaching experience. The guy's been around, and he's a great addition to Gottlieb's staff to kind of supplement the lack of head coaching experience that he has at the college level. So, okay, I'll admit, I'll drop the nice guy stuff a little bit. I give Doug Gottlieb a lot of crap, and I'm not necessarily a big fan of his when it comes to splitting time between Fox Sports or Fox Sports Radio and coaching Green Bay. So I've always had I wasn't the biggest fan of him for that reason. However, in this season that Green Bay has been having, I am willing to give them all the props in the world because of how low the program started when he got in there his first year and how they are now battling for basically the second seed in the league in just 1 year. Okay, that deserves its praise, podcasting and sports radio aside, that is a huge accomplishment. And I do respect that part of it. I respect how much the Green Bay community embraces the Phoenix, both the women's team and the men's team. You know, I mean, recently the women's team have just been dominant, so they've had more of them to cheer for. But now the men's team joins that club as well. So I love the community aspect to what Green Bay has, and just as a town in general. They're very tight knit. Kind of secluded. They got the Packers and they got the Phoenix, and I do like that part of it. I think that's very special for Horizon League teams to be very close to the community, like Oakland is with theirs. There's a rich history at Oakland, and they kind of feel that same way at Green Bay. So I want to at least put that at the middle of the table here when we talk about this game, because this did really impress me when it comes to what Green Bay is doing. To beat Oakland, the number 2 team, the team that beat the crap out of you before, to in their building, like that's not easy to do from their perspective. Now, there was a ton on Oakland's side that was not done well and aided into that win that Green Bay had, but I wanted to make sure I led with all of that. And with all that being said, this game was still extremely frustrating. Oh my God. You had the very typical, common slow start that Oakland's been having throughout much of these games that they have lost, and even some of them they were able to overcome and win before the 4-game losing streak. But this was just so frustrating, because you can basically tell right away when Oakland's going to have a game like that, where if they don't make some of those early shots, the ones that they give to Hogue early, the ones they give to Baru early, just to try and get under the basket and get the momentum going. If they start missing those easy bunnies, those easy bunny hop shots right in front of the basket, it's going to be a tough game. Because when you miss those and the other team makes theirs, you are immediately trailing and you are chasing the entire game. And that's pretty much how this game went, where Green Bay led for 31 minutes. Oakland only led for 6 minutes and 22 seconds. So constantly playing from behind is difficult. Oakland does not play well from behind, as we have seen. So to have that immediately be the start was like, oh no, here we go. This looks just like the Youngstown State game. So they missed those, and by the end of the game, Michael Hogan and Baru, they would combine for 5 of 14 from the floor. That's no good from your high percentage guys. Now, what was good is that Isaac Garrett, being back and fully healthy, he was 6 of 10 from the floor, 17 points, 10 rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds. He performed well, but you got to have the other big guys in there too if you're going to have a game, if you're going to be winning a game, especially when you're clawing from behind. But throughout the game, it looked bad. It didn't look good, but yet Oakland was still able to come back with a 14-3 run and get things just close enough before the half. They got it within 1 point. And then the final minute of that half, that's when Green Bay, they got a shot in for 2 points to increase their lead. And at the very end of the half, Todorovic, never heard of this guy. He played 4 minutes. He doesn't typically score that much. His only field goal attempt and make in the game was a 3-pointer buzzer beater at the end of the half that just basically killed much of the momentum that Oakland had going, that they built throughout that first half, and they would go into halftime up by 5, 37-32, Green Bay up at the half. That was just like, oh, that hurt, man, because a 14-3 run is just like, you're so close, and you got the momentum, and you got the crowd going, and then just kaboom, it's gone. Try again later. And Oakland did try again later, because in the first few minutes of the second half, it was kind of like, okay, we're resetting here. Green Bay's reestablishing that lead. And then Oakland is able to claw back and get within a possession. And they get the stop, and they have a chance to score and take the lead, and they don't do it. And then we basically go through that cycle 5 times. They get the stop, and they can't get the score, and then Green Bay scores, and then we're trying to score again. Back into 1 possession. Okay, let's try and get the lead. No, you can't. Okay, a couple possessions later, let's try again. 5 times they had a chance to get a lead, and by the time they did, it was only by like a possession, and it was easily taken away, and it just couldn't get over the hump. It was so frustrating. I asked both the guys at the post-game press conference as to why it is so difficult when you can make a 14-3 run. Why is it so hard to finally get the lead and get over the hump? And here's what the guys had to say at the post-game press conference. You guys were able to go on a 14-3 run shortly before halftime, but why is it so difficult to finally get over the hump and to gain the lead even after making a run like that? Why does that seem to be more difficult than the run itself?
I'll start by saying I feel like sometimes like we start off slow. I'm not sure why. I couldn't tell you honestly, but I feel like we get punched in the mouth and then we're like, okay, now we gotta fight and claw back into this, and then we get so close and then we settle. We are like, okay, we're back in the game, and then they go on their run. I think when we get to the point of where you get back in the game, you got to continue to keep your foot on the gas and continue to keep fighting and clawing and try to build some separation throughout the game. And I feel like when we got close tonight, we would take a 2-point, 1-point, 3-point lead, but we never took that 5-point lead or a 7-point lead, and those are huge things in a game like this.
Yeah, I agree with Brody. I think getting over the hump is it's on the players. I think we go on runs, we run good stuff, we get stops, and we have timely mistakes that lead to us. If we're down 1, now we're down 4 instead of going up 2 because of these players making timely mistakes.
You know they had it in them. You know they were able to do it, but they just put their foot off the gas. Once they got close, they're just like, no, not on purpose, but whatever in their brain shifts, the intensity slows down, and then they just have to keep cycle after cycle after cycle. They just can't get it done. And by the end of it, it would be a Green Bay victory, 73-68 in Oakland's building, sending them down to the 4th place spot in the standings. Green Bay up at the 2nd, and we lost to a team without their head coach. Now, that's a big headline. That's what people are going to tease us about. That's what Green Bay fans have been teasing us about. However, the assistant head coach who was the acting head coach is very capable. It's not often that the staff has so much experience behind a new head coach to where and again, this is no disrespect, but like in a way, it's either the same or better to have him as the head coach for one game. It's not the same for every team. And what's even funnier is that the last time Green Bay played in the arena in the regular season, Campy was suspended because of the RMU game. Campy charged the ref. He got suspended for it, and then it was Coach Smitty who was the acting head coach for Oakland when they hosted Green Bay. We ended up winning that one because Green Bay was no good back then. But it's funny to have it happen twice, mirror matched, and I guess you split those two non-head coached games in the regular season against Green Bay in the arena. How's that for a stat? So anyway, what was especially frustrating about this game, as another point to it, is when you look at the stat sheet, and you guys can see if you're watching on YouTube, I'm looking down because I still have the box scores that they hand out during the game. In this game, Oakland dominated on rebounds. That part of it was frustrating. Oakland dominated in free throws too. Perfect, 17 of 17. Meanwhile, Green Bay was 13 of 15. They made more than their opponent shot. That's the key. And that's what they've been doing all season, or at least going to try to do all season, and it's worked for them so far, except in this case, for whatever reason. And in addition to for the rebounding, we had 40 total rebounds to their 29. That's a huge margin. That's an 11-point swing on rebounds. 17 offensive rebounds for Oakland. 24 second chance points compared to 8 offensive rebounds for Green Bay and 9 second chance points for Green Bay. We scored well in the paint. A advantage of, what would that be, 8. 32-24 points in the paint. All the stats point to Oakland winning this game. But the three-point shooting, that's what digs us. That's the one that stands out and you go, ooh, 5 of 25, ouch, 20% compared to Green Bay, who shot excellently throughout the game. They were 10 of 22 from deep, 45%. That makes a huge difference. Also from the field, they were 25 of 55, 45.5%. Oakland was 23 of 62. They had 7 more shots and made 3 less for 37% from the field. They just didn't shoot the ball well. They didn't shoot the ball well, and I hate to assign blame to the players specifically, but like I mentioned before, Hogue, he was 3 of 7 from the field. 9 total points, 4 rebounds. Not bad. Make your shots, though, especially at the beginning. Baru, 2 of 7, 7 points total, 8 rebounds. We need more from you in games like that. He dominated the game that they played on the road. He had like 21 and 12. He had like a 20-point double-double in that game. So we need more from him. And what I thought was really strange, and this one I highlighted, I circled, I got notes on it, is that in this game, for whatever reason, Zaire Wells had 7 attempts from 3. He was 1 of 7. That's not necessarily what Zaire Wells usually does. And it was really weird, the shot selection, the timing of it, the fact that we're just trying so many from him. He's not our typical three-point shooter. He'll throw a couple in here and there. I mean, like, he's perfectly capable of making threes, and we'll talk more about that against Milwaukee. But he's perfectly capable of doing this, but he is not the volume three-point shooter like Brody Robinson or Brett White are. They didn't shoot well either. They were 2 of 8 and 2 of 7, Robinson and White, respectively. But why was Zaire getting so many chances from 3? I thought that was weird, especially when he wasn't making them, especially when there were weird, bad shots. Overall, Zaire was 3 of 14 for 7 points, 8 rebounds. But I just found that so strange. During the game, I go, YZ3. That's the note I write, during the game. YZ3. So I didn't understand that, and it obviously wasn't something that led to them winning, and also led to the 5 of 25 from deep. So listen, we got God. And Green Bay beat us on our home court without their head coach. I mean, they played well enough for it. They shot well enough for it. They believed in themselves for it. They had fans at the arena with free Doug shirts. That's part of that community that they have. When a team's good, they wrap their arms around them. I totally respect that. And for something that they view as an injustice, and now I'm placing no judgment on whether or not it should have been a tech, whether it should have been suspended. I don't know. The Green Bay Athletic Department does not think so. Neither do the fans. Like, there was an official statement brought out, not only by the athletic department, but also by the Green Bay Barstool. The Barstool had an official press release statement. But so when they view that they have been unjustly punished, then they believe even harder. Totally respect that. And they would end up winning, getting the second seed at the time, at least. It's getting scrambled pretty much right now. But 73-68 final score, Phoenix win. Great. and I of course I got to hear Jim Sorrow from the Horizon Roundtable, who I've had the pleasure of co-hosting some of the shows with, some of the Horizon Roundtable shows throughout the season. He gives the of course, Green Bay is 10 of 22 from deep. It's like, okay, thanks, Jim. That didn't sting at all. But that is what sets up now Sunday's game, the most recent one, against Milwaukee. We'll take a break, and we'll get over to the Milwaukee game, and then we'll get a view at the Horizon League standings, what we're looking for in the next couple of games, and we'll kind of give you guys a heads up as to what is to come for the rest of the regular season. So we'll take a break, and we'll come back. And now on to the game Sunday afternoon. 3 o'clock tip-off against the Milwaukee Panthers. Oakland wins this one 81-70, and things feel right in the world. And this feels like Oakland basketball. And a sigh of relief is breathed not only through the team locker room, the coaching staff offices, but the arena and campus in total. It's just, it feels good to win again. It feels good for Oakland to win at home. And during what can't be called one of the worst home seasons they've had in the entire program's history, during the worst stretch in the program, they've never lost 4 conference games in a row, according to Campy. What he said at both the TV and the media press conference after the game, it just feels so good to win again. At 81-70, your final score. And if you guys follow the Instagram, it's going to be kind of a relay of the same main points, but I'll start with the negative on this game in that it was the rebounding. The rebounding was bad. Milwaukee just dominated the boards, 42-30, a plus 12 on rebounding, and 18 offensive rebounds for the Panthers compared to 9 for Oakland. The glass wasn't there. And there was certain times where it's just like, dude, grab the ball. Like it was getting to a point where it was just insane. However, the biggest point in this game, I think the biggest reason for victory came in the opening minutes because Oakland started 3 of 4 from the floor instead of 1 of 4, instead of 2 of 4 with bad misses. They were immediately a go. They were making their shots. They started off with an IG dunk, and then Baru would get one a couple possessions later. It's just like they got those baskets with confidence, with assuredness, and they were able to not play from behind the entire way like they did against Green Bay. Oakland led for 21 and a half minutes, Milwaukee for 13 minutes, 19 seconds. Like it was split. It went back and forth. This wasn't a cakewalk like the final score would dictate. There were 16 lead changes in this game. So this was back and forth, but Oakland wasn't trailing multi-possession right away. They were able to keep up and keep it close and kind of keep pace that way. And speaking of pace, they were able to kind of play at their normal pace. They played a lot faster in this one. This one felt like Oakland was the one dictating the tempo. It was Oakland that was the aggressor. This was mentioned in the press conference too from Brody, that instead of reacting, they were the ones acting and forcing Milwaukee to react to it. And that's something I felt like that was missing from the past few games, is that Oakland was playing reactive. They were playing not confident. They were playing scared to lose. And you didn't feel like they were doing their thing. They were not the aggressors. In this game, they were. That's what was one of the biggest differences, and it was established early on that they were not going to fall flat. That's immediately when I thought, okay, this is different. This feels different. And something else, and I actually forgot to mention it for the Green Bay game, but the kind of gauge that I sometimes use for how the offense is running is the assist-to-turnover ratio. That's pretty typical. It's a good way to see if the offense is kind of going as planned, it is crisp, and if it's running as usual. In Green Bay, it was not, and you can tell by 10 assists to 11 turnovers. Ugh, no, that's not good. That's not how Oakland plays ball. But against Milwaukee, 19 assists to only 9 turnovers. That's a well-oiled machine. That's how you score 80 at home. That's how you get back into the groove of things. You got Brody Robinson with 9 of those 19 assists. Otherwise, it came pretty well distributed throughout the team. Baru had 4 assists. Coy Thurman had significant minutes. Him with 3 assists as well. Michael Hogue had a couple. Isaac Garrett had 1, and all adding up to that 19 assists and only 9 turnovers. So that's a great sign right away. But throughout the game, it went back and forth, and it was like, it wasn't anything significant other than the rebounding, where you thought like, if there's just one thing, like, other than the rebounding, no. I mean, Oakland was able to keep up in this one. And when you look to the shooting percentages, Oakland had a great shooting day too. That was also part of how they won. They were 10 of 20 from deep. That's huge. And remember what I said about Zaire Wells from 3, and how I was like, why is he shooting so many threes? And that's not his skill set. It's not what he does. But I'll tell you what, most of these came in the first half, but Wells was 3 of 3 from deep. He did not miss until much later in the game. He would finish with 13 points on only 6 field goals. He was 5 of 6 from the floor. He was 3 of 3 from deep with 3 rebounds. He had a very solid game off the bench. Whereas in the game before, he was in the starting lineup. I feel like Zaire's played well when he's off the bench, but I know in the past few games it's been because of injury and this and that. There was other circumstances, but him coming off the bench and just electrifying the place. He had a dunk. He had three 3-pointers. Like, he had a spectacular game that helped Oakland keep the offense afloat and going and keeping the crowd engaged and cheerful. But I'll tell you what, Baru with 23 points and 9 rebounds, that's the Baru we needed against Green Bay, but it's the one we got against Milwaukee, and he was sensational. Dunks early and just kind of a constant presence, a few block. You got a block in this one as well. One block and one block assist. For 23 points, he led the Golden Grizzlies in scoring and in rebounding. But I'll tell you what, it wasn't the most points on the team, but man, Brody Robinson lit the place on fire. He only had 3 points in the first half, and wasn't getting a ton of shots. It wasn't necessarily that he was taking a lot and missing them, but just I think he was like 1 of 3. He just made a single 3-pointer in the first half. And then he turned that thing up. He turned on the jets, and I saw him going full speed, sprinting down to the basket on steals and recognizing that he'd be able to outrun the guy covering him. And we just haven't seen that in so long. I asked him about this directly in the press conference. And, of course, I'm going to show you guys the clip. But it was just, you don't see that a lot from him anymore or in the stretch. But when he goes full speed, when he's the fastest on the block, good things happen. I asked him about that specifically at the press conference, and I loved his response. Check it out.
For Brody, just to follow up on the second half, I noticed that you were able to play at top speed more often, and it's something we haven't seen throughout some of this stretch. Was it intentional or a focus to get you at top speed downhill like that, or is that just how the game opened up for you?
I mean, they were just softly pressing, and they just looked like they were on their heels, so I personally don't think somebody can run backwards and keep up with me. So if you're guarding me that full court, then you better be able to run. That's how I feel. And it just worked out. It wasn't anything that we planned on doing, but if I feel you're that close, I just feel like I can run by you.
This dude's got such a swagger about him. You could tell that he was holding back. He was polite to the media and stuff, but he knows what he's about, and I love that kind of confidence. And it comes out after a win, but that plus the crowd, he's waving at the crowd when he's making a three. I just love the way this dude plays when he's energized because it energizes everybody else. He was 6 of 10 from the floor, 4 of 8 from deep. He had the hot hand that night for 20 points and 9 assists. It was just great to see him at that top speed again because early on in the non-conference, guys, remember, he was back-to-back Horizon League Player of the Week because of the games against Lamar and Montana, as well as against Purdue, Fort Wayne, and Toledo. I think he kind of had that repeat performance, but it was because he was going fast and he was going downhill and crashing under the basket and getting to the free throw line. That's his game. His game is speed, man. And with that speed, that opens up the other guys. And now, luckily with Baru, scoring the way he was and some of the guys inside doing a little bit better, well, I guess we could look at the numbers and maybe not so much, but either way, like Brody opens up the big guys open up Brody, and that kind of, compounds upon itself. But just overall, it's so good to see Brody play that way again. So looking at the rest of the stats here, some of your highlights: 18 fast break points, kind of leading to the point I was making. Oakland playing at their speed, Brody playing at his speed. Now you get, on the rebound side, obviously with so many offensive rebounds for Milwaukee, they're going to get 22 second chance points compared to 13 for Oakland. But points in the paint, Oakland leading that one 38-30. However, points off turnovers. Excuse me, I thought I was saying like 13 turnovers. No, 18 points off turnovers for Oakland also gave them an advantage in that one. And I saw throughout the game on the live stat sheet, like there were many times where it's like Milwaukee had 5 turnovers in the scoreless stretch, 3 turnovers in the scoring drought that they had. All of that adding up to just what is a very familiar feeling Oakland win. And that sets them up to be in position to at least secure a home game in the Horizon League tournament. Okay, so for those of you guys who aren't familiar with the Horizon League tournament format, it's very weird. I'll put an image on the screen here so you guys can kind of understand what I'm getting at here. But the biggest point is that it is the top 5 seeds that now get a home game in the Horizon League tournament, whereas before it was a top 4, and the fifth seed would go on the road to play the 4 seed. So it's like that. So now they kind of expand the home game tournament games. So that kind of eases the pressure for Oakland to finish in the top 4. Now they can finish in the top 5 and still get that home game. But obviously, you want to get the highest seed you can. I mean, obviously, that just makes sense. And Oakland is still possibly at risk of dropping down to be playing on the road. So that's why these last 2 games are coming in pretty crucial. But I'll describe the format to you guys as best I can. So the opening round, there's a play-in between the 11th seed and the 10th seed. They go to the 10 seed's place, and the winner of that game, basically the worst remaining, they go to play the number 1 seed at their house. It's most likely going to be Wright State. So then in that first round, you have the 1 versus the worst remaining. Then you have the 2 hosting the 9, the 3 hosting the 8, the 4 hosting the 7, and the 5 hosting the 6. So once those games are played, the top 3 teams get to skip the next round and go straight to the semifinals. But the opponent of the best team remaining would be a game between the second worst first round winner. This is at Corteva Coliseum. So the second worst first round winner will be playing against the worst first round winner. The winner of that game will then play the best seed remaining, while the second and third seeds play each other for a chance to go to the championship. Again, I'll leave an image on the screen. This is very confusing, and even me saying it out loud, I'm confused myself. But it's a weird format. The point is that Oakland is trying to get into a top 5 seed. They're capable of doing it, and it's very possible that they can. But it's not totally in the cards. There's still ways that Oakland could drop down and out of this, because Purdue Fort Wayne, who is currently at that 6 seed, they have 10 wins as well. So I think if Purdue Fort Wayne wins out, then they could potentially jump into that 5 seed. And if Oakland loses out, they could jump down into that 6 seed. I think. It's very confusing because it's just so clogged up at the top of the league. You got Northern Kentucky at the 7th place with 9 wins, and then everybody else is 10 plus. It's like this is a crazy close conference, everybody. So I want everyone to understand that. But the point is that Oakland now comes up to games against IU Indy on the road, and then they host Detroit Mercy on Saturday. That will close out the regular season. Those are huge games. Now, IU Indy, 3 wins in conference play. They're not that good. They haven't been that good. But they beat you. They beat Oakland by 20-some points in their house. It's possible, and it's not a gimme. But Oakland has to take care of business, and it's a team that they're able to do that against. I got to believe that Oakland can beat IU Indy. I don't think the Jaguars are going to sweep us this year. That would be crazy if that happened. And I don't even think I'm jinxing it by saying that. In every other context, you would expect a win. Let's put it that way. But then you play Detroit Mercy on Saturday. Now, depending on how things shake out, Detroit Mercy is currently the 3rd seed. They're 11-7. They're tied with Robert Morris and Oakland. This will end up being a crazy matchup. This is a matchup where, yes, there is a ton of history for it. And yes, Oakland has dominated the series of games. They haven't lost in Callahan Hall in like 10 years. I think 10 years plus now, because they beat them in Detroit this year. But when Detroit wins, they usually do it at the arena. And a matchup that features 2 top 5 teams, 2 top 4 teams that could maybe not decide who goes on the road for the tournament, who hosts a game in the tournament. This could potentially be huge. And Detroit Mercy is a good team. They beat Wright State. We didn't. So first of all, let's put that on the table. Give Detroit Mercy their flowers too. I gave Green Bay a ton of flowers at the beginning of this episode. I will give Detroit the same. I'm very impressed with what they've done this season. I'm very impressed with the turnaround. And Mark Montgomery and his team and a lot of the returning players who have stuck it out in that season last year to get better and play in this year. Huge respect for it. Tyler Spratt is nuts. Orlando Lovejoy is nuts. Legend Jeter. TJ Nadeau. It's a stacked team. It's a really good team. And they're motivated. And if they could host in Callahan Hall, I don't know how crazy the crowd would be, but that is a huge landmark moment for Mark Montgomery and the program. to be able to host a Horizon League tournament game. So you have that kind of momentum. You got that energy coming into the arena. And there is no team in the Horizon League that wants to beat Oakland in the arena more than Detroit Mercy. Saturday looks to be a fantastic matchup. I can't wait for it. Like, okay, fandom and rivalry aside, it's going to be a great basketball game. It's going to be great for the rivalry. The place is going to be a zoo. It's going to be crazy. I just know it. And I can't wait to see all the Detroit media people that might be there. Some of them I've met before. Some I will be meeting for the first time. Like, it's going to be a great event. I'm so excited for it. I've been looking forward to it all season long. I knew Detroit Mercy, and we even when I was talking to Bob McDonald at the checkpoint when the Horizon League season was in like full-time start in like December-ish, Detroit Mercy and Green Bay were teams that have surprised Bob and outperformed their expectations. That looks to be a continued trend with both of them in the top 5. It's going to be sweet. Final week of the regular season is going to be awesome. We'll be right here on the GioMo Show to cover it as we get into the Horizon League tournament. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to follow on Instagram. Everywhere and any way you can, support the show. We got a lot to do once this last week comes and the Horizon League tournament comes. This is prime time GioMo Show. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. This is a long episode, so thank you for sticking around. Thank you so much for your support. We'll see you next time. My name is Giovanni Moceri here on the GioMo Show. Go Golden Grizzlies.